lovely people, it's Nicole, and today I have my, what is it, July haul for you guys. Oh my god, the summer's almost over. Thank god it is way too warm. I'm very ready to go back to school and let it cool down again. I miss my Seattle rain, but let's just jump right into the haul. So the first books I got this month are Harley Quinn volumes 1 and 2. My dad was going in for a surgery, totally fine, everything's all worked out, but we were just kind of waiting around in the hospital and we would be there for another like several hours just waiting for him to go into the surgery. And so I needed to do something to entertain myself. There was a comic book store that was just a few minutes away, so I went down and grabbed myself some comics to entertain myself. Obviously, I then read them. So I have read these and I will talk about them in my wrap up. Then I got Because You Love to Hate Me by a bunch of different authors, but edited by Amory, BookTube's own. And this is featuring collaborations between awesome booktubers and authors. And if you haven't heard about this yet, I'm kind of surprised because like a bunch of awesome booktubers are in it. And this is a collection of short stories where the booktubers gave their author villains, and then the authors wrote short stories about those villains. So I am very excited to read this. I haven't had a chance because just after it came out there was like booktubeathon going on and it's been a little hectic, but I'm very, very excited to read this. Then I got The Land of Stories Worlds Collide, and this is the last book in Chris Colfer's Land of Stories series. I read the prologue to this and I have not had a chance to finish it yet because of booktubeathon, but I'm definitely excited to finish it. I'm definitely excited to read it. I'm putting it on hold for a little bit, but I do love this series. I love Chris Colfer's sense of humor in this. Basically, the series is about these two twins who find themselves literally falling into the storybook that their grandmother would always read them fairy tales from, and then they find this huge land where all the fairy tales actually happened, and now it's sort of the what happened next, and they're interacting with all these awesome fairy tale characters who aren't necessarily as they seemed in their stories. And the plotline of the series has sort of evolved from there into a more all-encompassing both worlds plus the worlds of some other non-fairy tale books and just fun stuff like that. And so I'm definitely excited to read the finale of the series. Then I got Peter Darling by Austin Chant, and I have already read this. I will talk about it in my wrap-up, but this is a Peter Pan, kind of a sequel, kind of a retelling, where basically Peter Pan has been out of Neverland. He's been living in the regular human world for the past few years, and now he's going back to Neverland to find out that everything has changed and like the Lost Boys have a new leader and they're kind of like, they have a truce with the pirates, but then he and Hook get their rivalry back on and they realize that they kind of need each other and that they really just kind of fuel each other, and potentially a romance blossoms, and there's a whole trans plotline. Peter is trans. Like I said, I have read this and I will talk about it in my wrap up. Then I got Every Exquisite Thing by Matthew Quick. This is about a teenage girl who is sort of the perfect daughter. She's a star athlete, she's a straight A student, and then one day one of her teachers gives her an old copy of one of his favorite books and she decides to sort of start rebelling. That's really all I know about this book, but I've heard amazing things about it. I've heard amazing things about Matthew Quick, so I'm definitely excited to read it. Then I got Girl Man's Up by M.E. Gerard, and I'm not entirely sure the plot of this one. And you know, the main character is a girl who presents as very masculine, and she deals with a lot of difficulties in relation to that, especially from her parents. That's really all I know about it, but I have heard really, really good things about it, so I thought it would be interesting to pick up. Then I got The Wicked and the Just by J. Anderson Coates. This is about a teenage girl in the late 13th century England who she and her father one day have to kind of pick up and leave her life behind and move to Wales. She is just kind of freaking out. She's lived a fairly privileged life and now she's living somewhere that is much more out in the country than she's used to. She is very freaked out by all the Welsh people who live in the area, and she is just having a really, really tough time at transitioning. And then we also read from the point of view of a Welsh girl who works for the estate that her and her father move into. And this just kind of follows the rising tensions between Welsh and the English in that area. Then I got Hold Me Closer, Necromancer, and Necromancing the Stone by Lish McBride, and I've read the first one but not the second one. Basically the setup of this series is that you have this sort of college-age guy. He dropped out of college, he's working in what's basically a off-brand McDonald's. He doesn't really have anything going for him right now, but then he finds out that he is actually a necromancer and he has all these powers he never knew about out and he gets swept into this crazy, dark, violent world of this magical sort of underground society where there are werewolves and vampires and fairies and warlocks and necromancers and all this crazy stuff. Then I got elected by Rory Shea, and this is about a girl who is the heir to the throne in her country, which is basically a dystopian United States. Problem is, in this dystopian world, only men can inherit the throne. So since she was 4, her parents have forced her to present as male in order to allow her to inherit the throne because they can't have any more kids. So now she is, I think, 18. She's set to inherit the throne and she is kind of freaking out. She has to get married and have kids and she just doesn't know how she's gonna do that. Then I got Runaways, the complete collection, volume 3, and this is a continuation of the Runaways series, which I've been reading and absolutely loving. The series follows a group of young teenage superheroes who, before they realize any of the superhero stuff, they find out that their parents are this group of supervillains called the Pride, and then they have to run away from home and figure out how to take down their parents. Then I got Lucky in Love by Casey West, and this is a adorable, fluffy, romantic contemporary. I have already read it. I talked about it in my Booktubeathon wrap-up, and then I'll talk about it again in my July wrap-up. This is about a teenage girl who buys a lottery ticket kind of just on a whim and wins $30 million, and then she is just trying to survive her last year or so of high school while being just constantly mobbed by people who she's never really talked to before, who suddenly want to be her best friend. She doesn't really know who she can trust. And then she's also falling for this guy who she works with at the zoo, who seems to be the only person who doesn't know about her win. Then I got Amulet by Kazu Kibushi, and this is about 2 siblings who their father died a little while ago, and so now they have to move with their mother into her ancestors' really old, kind of creepy house. But on their first night there, their mom is kidnapped by this super freaky, like, tentacle monster, and so they follow it into this, like, alternate dimension that is this whole other fantasy world, and they discover that there's some whole magic plot that they have to figure out, and the main girl also has this magic amulet that gives her cool powers that she has been designated the protector of. Then I got The Body Finder by Kimberly Durting, and this is about a teenage girl who has the power to sense dead bodies. She can hear them and she can smell them, and it hasn't really been much of a problem for her whole life. She's just found the occasional, like, dead animal in the woods, until now when she finds the body of a teenage girl who has been murdered, and she discovers a serial killer that only she can help to catch. Then I got Miles Morales, Spider-Man by Jason Reynolds, and this is the novelization of Miles Morales. I know Marvel and DC has been doing this whole novelization of a bunch of their heroes, and this is for Miles Morales, who is the Spider-Man after Peter Parker, and he is just sort of an average New York teenager living his life, except for the fact that he's also Spider-Man and being awesome. And then after a misunderstanding, he gets accused of a crime he didn't commit and gets suspended from school, and he decides that it's time to hang up his costume and just be a normal teenager for a while. But then he starts to question that decision when he uncovers this mysterious plot that's going on. So those are all the books I got this month. Let me know if you guys have read any of them and which ones I should read next in the comments. I love you guys, and I will see you later.